Okay, yeah. So I guess to just start off the interview, we would just like to find out about what is your past experience in terms of your education as well as your working experience, and how did it actually help you in your current business?
Yeah, so I have always been studying finance from Ngee Poly all the way up to NUS. Then afterwards, I worked in the public sector for 4 years. That was largely because of my scholarship bond. But the 4 years while I was in the public sector was a very good time for me to start my side hustle, which eventually developed to what I'm doing today, which is writing about investment research and then charging people on a yearly basis. So it is good to start something while you are a student, or so for my case, I had to work in the government sector for 4 years. So you always try and start small, and given the internet landscape today, right, there's really not much cost or consequence to starting any new venture you want. So it's very easy for you to experiment around with small ideas, and then quickly scale up as and when. In terms of the skill set wise, to be honest, the stuff I learned in NUS probably is just like learning how to talk in public speaking or giving presentation, etc. But in terms of the day-to-day stuff that we study, like accounting, finance, etc. Okay, I mean accounting is useful, but when it comes to finance, investing, you learn all the Black-Scholes model and all that whatnot. That usually isn't as helpful as the soft skill you develop. What's more important is what you do outside of your job, or outside of your school. And I think some of the most important thing that if you are thinking about pursuing entrepreneurship is marketing, copywriting, etc. Because you can outsource a lot of things. My website, everything, I outsource to other people to do it. But when it comes to your personal branding and marketing, etc., these are the kind of decisions you have to think through and then execute it yourself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, so maybe you can just give us a brief introduction about what is steady compounding. Actually, to the all of my other team members here. So, just a little bit about your company and how long it has actually been running.
Yeah, so it has been going on for about 2 years. The product I'm selling is mainly research services. So so they will pay an annual subscription of $130 per year per subscriber. And then what they will get is they will get about between 8 to 12 breakdown of companies. So currently I've broken down companies like Facebook, C Limited, and the next one coming up is CrowdStrike, and several others. The content I started out actually, and the reason why I call it steady compounding is because all things worthwhile in life all comes from compounding, right? Be it relationship, health, or money. And I started writing not just investing, but also a lot of personal development content. Yeah, so mainly that's where the bulk of my income come in, is through subscription. I like subscription because it is recurring, right? I don't need to keep on going back to find new customers every single time. They just sort of build on top of each other, and over time this will come up to a pretty sizable pool, provided I keep providing value to my subscribers. Then there's the other part of my income, which is really from products. So like, let's say recently I just took up a money owl project, right? Because the tax season is coming. So I'll teach people how to save tax and invest, grow your wealth at the same time. And for this, they'll give me a fixed fee. Or let's say if like, let's say Great Eastern want me to talk to their private clients, then that's where I also charge a fixed fee on a per hour rate. So these are the non-recurring part. But I still do it from time to time because starting out, it will help you cover your expenses and stuff. But the main bulk of the thing is the objective, or rather the goal, is always to build the subscription base, because that's where you can achieve skill. Stuff like doing project with Money Hour or Great Eastern, for example, those things I'm not able to scale. Meaning, like, let's say I'm trading my time for money, right? 1 hour talk for maybe $2,000, but those things don't scale because my time is limited. But let's say if I were to do the subscription thing, I write one piece of article, I can sell unlimited times, unlimited subscribers, 1,000 or 1 million subscribers. I'm still incurring the same amount of costs. So I'm very focused on doing work that's able to scale. So I'm always striving for that balance. Most of my time will be directed towards things that scale, and then a smaller portion towards things that doesn't scale as well.
Right, I see. So I think linking back to what you said about things that scale, right? Do you actually intend to have partners in your team and be it like interns or even people who help you to come up with the reports? Because from what I understand, you are doing it as a one-man show now.
Yeah. So okay. So initially, when I designed this business, right, I wanted to design it as a one-man show because I hate meetings. Okay. So working in a big corporation, I work in government organization, right, 1,800 people. The amount of meetings is horrendous, man, and I always felt like meetings is just a gigantic waste of time. Not sure whether you all sat through like boring meetings before, but I mean, working in the government organization, there's a shit ton of boring meetings, which is why I swung to the other extreme. I wanted things to move very fast, and for things to move fast, right, you do it alone. But of course, they say like if you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you do it with other people. Eventually I may consider doing it with other people. Yeah, definitely, because like when I'm doing things alone, I'm stretched between creating content like the analysis and and doing marketing. As a one-man show, I'm not able to shout as loud as other people. So when it comes to selling your products as an entrepreneur, right, it doesn't matter how good a product you have if you're not able to market it well, because it's always based on the perceived value by your customers. If they're not able if we are not able to show them that this value is going to exceed the amount of cost they are putting out, then even though you got a fabulous product, you don't shout it loud enough, nobody will care. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's a lot of sales and a lot of like marketing things that you have to pick up along the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess when you first started this business, given that it's like an online model, right? I'm assuming that it doesn't really take much capital, but perhaps do you eventually like have some kind of costs and expenses to your business? And if so, do you have to actually dig into your own pockets to fund these kind of expenses?
Yeah, so that is a good question. When I thought about what business I want to do, I have to be very intentional. So when you look at the statistics, right, out of 10 business, more than 6 or 7, or even I think 8 will fail. Most of those that fail are going to be restaurants and whatnot. You sell clothes, etc. Right? Because there's also going to be a lot of startup costs. You need to set up the kitchen, etc. My friends who start up gyms, right? Even a small gym would cost $50,000 in capital, right? So you got this bunch of fixed assets, all this sitting in the gym or in the kitchen, etc. And you need to start paying monthly rental. Whether or not you have business coming in, there's going to be a lot of fixed costs that you need to incur. But when I go online, right, suddenly there's no inventory. There's no working capital I need to maintain. There's no assets I need to maintain, right? What I pay per year is only $300 in server cost, hosting, and maybe I subscribe to a few SaaS product, right? The software as a service to make my life easier. The only thing is that the barrier to entry is low. So what you want to do is you have to carve out a name for yourself, right? People will have to associate your name to the brand you want to show. And that is where something that cannot be bought over with money. But when you start a gym or restaurant, you will face the same problem, right? So many cafes, so many gym, like how are you going to shout louder than people? And that is where I have to attend a lot of podcasts or go on radio. What's that radio station called? Yeah, there's this Money FM radio which I attended, and Sidley and all that whatnot. If you all attend all the finance stuff in Singapore, yeah, and then I also need to keep shouting on social media, Twitter and stuff, create YouTube, create podcasts. Yeah, so that's about it. I don't have much cost, which makes it very easy because I imagine like entrepreneurs, if you always have to be bothered by the amount of costs, right? You need to meet cash flow, especially cash flow requirement. You need to pay your staff, etc. It's very difficult to focus on the strategy of the business or to push your business further, right? Because when you talk about the basic needs of getting your cash flow, worrying whether you are able to make back your initial capital, those are all problems. So like right off the bat, the first week I launched my business, I'm profitable already, right? That's just how internet business work. And right, if you ever want to start anything, always remember that the internet is the easiest and least costly way to start. Yeah, so the risk is very, very low.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's very interesting that you actually get your first paying customer very quickly. So, and you also mentioned, I think, like how um you actually have a YouTube channel, you actually publicize, sort of like promote yourself in the investing space in Singapore, be it on radios or on Seedly. So are these like how are these like strategies of how you actually grow your customer base? Would you
Yeah,
say?
so when you look at paid, I don't do paid advertisement because yeah, so when you look at your Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, right, I'm sure you will see a lot of these investment bloggers or those causes, like they sound like fraud, right? And that is just the old way of I can't remember the term. I think it's direct consumer marketing or something like that, right? Whereby you try and pitch a very formal message out, like if you take this, you'll get 20% returns. But nowadays with the internet, people are looking for value first before they even consider buying anything. So which is why I adopted going on podcasts like Financial Coconut or yeah, just any of the major platforms whereby the eyeballs is strong. Seedly especially, I think they're one of the strongest, or dollars and cents, one of the strongest in Singapore. That's why I'll go on, get interviewed, and then I'll pitch them a company. I'll break down like C Limited in detail so that the audience can judge for themselves whether my skill sets or what I'm able to offer, is it aligned with what they want? Because consumers nowadays are a lot more, they suspect, they are more suspicious, right? They are more discerning than the past, because in the past, information is not as liberalized, but nowadays, at the search of the Google, everything will come out, right? A lot of free information around. So you need to put out that value first, before you're able to convert people into your customers, which is why that's the main strategy I'm adopting.
Nice. Okay, I agree with you. Yeah, like in the past, like information is like in only there's like limited amount of information, and information is only found with like one person. But now with the internet, there's like information everywhere, and consumers are looking for value. So on that note, right, how do you think you actually stand out from all the competition in the market, and do you actually see them as competitors, or in fact do you actually maybe collaborate with some of them?
Yeah, so the internet is a big space, right? I don't really view them as competition because the market is just huge. Like the market I'm going after is not the Singapore market, right? Yeah, so the market I'm going after is mainly the American market because that's where I think people are more ready to subscribe. So when I look at the demographic of my subscriber, even though I go on local programs a lot, right? But most of the subscribers are still coming from places like US, UK, or Australia. Yeah, so on the internet, right, the market is just huge, and this may be not intuitive, but my so-called competition, they are all very helpful people. Like when I first started out, they all gave me a lot of advices on how I should structure my marketing. And every week, I'm actually speaking to people who are doing the exact same stuff as me, just that we cover different companies, we got different investing styles. So we let our audience find us. And when doing on the internet, right, it's important to be I would say authentic, or you do things that you really like. Because the market is just so huge, right? You don't have to conform yourself to try and impress a very large target group. In fact, you should focus on a niche, and let those very niche audience come and find you. Yeah, so not really a lot of competition. As in, I don't feel like it's super competitive In fact, I think most people who are in this space are extremely helpful so far. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So glad to know that you don't really see them as competition, and you actually receive a lot of help from other people as well. So with regards to you actually coming up with this idea, right? How do you actually choose between providing investment research as a service compared to providing investment advice, or like managing other people's portfolio? Because some of your, I guess, competitors actually do that, right? Like they tell you, oh, how you can manage your money. Yeah.
So this is a good question. I'm often asked like whether I just want to manage their money rather than provide this. But ultimately you have to think of what is the end goal that you want. So eventually, if you want to be rich, why is it that you want to be rich? And most of the time people want freedom, right? So I would imagine if I run people's portfolio or I provide financial advice, one thing is I can't scale, meaning I'm still exchanging 1 hour for that, for that maybe the $1,000, for example. So that part, the scalability is not there. I will not attain true freedom. Likewise, if I were to run other people's money, right? I will also not get the independence and freedom that I think is my end goal. Because when I'm managing other people's money, especially let's say if one person is coming up with $10 million, if the market drops, he's going to be calling me, he's going to be asking me like why. But whereas if I do this, I don't have customer concentration, right? When you run a fund, usually there's going to be a handful of customers who's providing most of your assets under management, basically how much money they put in, So let's say if your fund is 10 million and one guy puts in 5 million, you can be sure that the guy who puts 5 million is going to treat you like his personal assistant or something like that. He's going to ask you a lot of questions. But whereas for me, like let's say my subscribers is a few thousand people, right? And I'm very clear on my landing page that I'm not your personal financial advisor. And when they ask me, like if they got a question, can they ask me? I flat out tell them, no, you cannot ask me. Right? It depends on the kind of audience you want to attract. And so far, like whenever I write things, if they have a question, they'll post on the public forum where I can address it to everyone. That way, I just have to respond one time, rather than like if I were to run a fund, I'll have to respond to every single one of my clients, because every single one of them, the minimum investment sum in the US is $100,000. So when they put sizable amount of money with you, they're going to worry, they're going to keep asking you. Yeah, so when I designed this business model, it's really for independence and for scalability in mind.
Right, I see. So you talk about like independence and scalability, right? So that is that like your goal, and what are some of your other like lifestyle needs, and how do you actually piece these together to start this entrepreneurship journey? Like, was it because before that, as you mentioned, that you were working in a public sector, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't really help you to fulfill this goal, that therefore you decide to take the leap of faith and jump into pursuing of your own business. Was that the reason why?
So, as in the reason for starting this is really I don't like bureaucracy and I like to move fast, right? And I like to do deep work. When you work in an organization, I had to toggle between multiple projects at one time, right? Like your boss asks you to do this, you do this. Like they email you, they expect you the next hour, you have to reply them. And then I start to wonder, like, am I here to reply emails, or am I here to do real work? And working in the public sector, it's very bureaucratic in a sense, like it's not the most competent who gets rewarded, right? It is the people who have stayed there the longest who get rewarded. I mean, you could send in a Mark Zuckerberg in year one or Bill Gates in year one, right? He's gonna be paid 3,000, and he's gonna do shit roles like be the company secretary, take meeting minutes, where he could be overhauling the entire public sector IT system, but that just doesn't happen. You just have to follow the very sequential over the years. Then you start to do that. But over the internet, it's just fair playing field. You are compensated based on how competent you are, right? There's no more things like whereby how many years then you can get there, right? It's really how the landscape is flat. It is how much effort and how quickly you're willing to learn that will set your remuneration and how much recognition you actually get. Yeah, so that is really the basis for why I decided to come out and do it myself. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Could you also share perhaps because you mentioned that you actually started this business for about 2 years, right? So is it that 2 years, within these 2 years you actually start versus like okay, like sorry, let me rephrase that. Like, how much time do you actually take from the conception of the idea to the first day of business? Is it like 2 years?
No. So like when I thought of it, so I just wrote it down in paper, like what are the few things I could be doing, and then you just start and go with it. Like even my blog has gone through like several rounds of revamp, and the content it has also changed over time. There's not really a lot of conception time, but when the risk is low, in this case, it's not like I'm running a restaurant, right? I need to make sure my marketing, my branding, everything is done correct from the start, because I will have to sink a lot of cost in. But when it comes to doing business on the internet, well, I think what matters is that you move fast and break things. I mean, to copy what Facebook previous message is, right? Just because the risk is very low, what you want to do is you want to start experiments very, very quickly. And when you're able to find your niche, or you're able to start finding your target audience and you're seeing results, then you just double down on that. When doing business, right, or when you're trying something new, I think the biggest thing that holds us back is fear, right? Just because our amygdala, or humans, we are evolved to be afraid of trying new things. And to overcome that, you just have to start with the smallest idea or smallest action that you can take, and then just keep on doing it. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of startup time. I mean, the most amount of time is just getting to learn how to use WordPress, finding a server host. No, actually thinking about steady compounding name is the toughest thing. Yeah, other than that, I think everything just flow. Yeah, thinking about the name is the most horrible thing. Yeah.
But I think it's a very good name, like that you can talk. I mean, you can talk about not just investing, but as you mentioned, like personal growth, things like that. Yeah. So it's a really good name that you actually thought about, I think.
I mean, if I could do it again, I'll choose something with a shorter name, because steady compounding is a mouthful. So I realized, like, when DJs or or hosts, when they speak it, it's multiple syllable. And when it's a long name, right, it becomes difficult for people to remember. Right. When you think of like Nike, all this is just 2 syllable. I mean, if I get to redo things again, I'll change to a much shorter name.
Shorter name. Okay. So we have a couple of more questions here. So like, we also want to find out, what is your typical day in life? Like, do you spend most of your time doing the company research, or like how do you actually allocate your typical day?
Yeah, this is a good question, because when you're starting on your entrepreneurship journey, right, you have full control of your schedule, which is both good and bad. Because if there's no structure to it, you realize that you get depressed very fast. Because okay, so previously, let's say as a student, there's always a benchmark to how you're doing, because everything is scheduled out for you, your timetable. Then you have your midterms, then your common tests, then projects, presentation. You get to know how well you are doing against your peers, right? But whereas when you are doing entrepreneurship, you sort of like, it's very difficult to benchmark yourself, and sometimes you feel like there's no progress at all. So this is where routine or structure becomes very important. So I mean, I had to change it a few times to find where it suits me the most. So right now, as of now, because I'm most productive in the morning. If it works opposite for you, then you just flip it around. But for me, I try to get 3 to 4 hours of uninterrupted writing first thing in the morning. So I usually wake up at around 6, then I'll start writing until maybe 10 to 11, right? Then it's also important that you meet other people and you do engage in other activities. Then around 2 o'clock, I will go to the gym, I'll go exercise or something like that, right? Then I usually will meet 2 people a week, like just overseas investors, to exchange ideas, or people who are doing the same business as me. And we just exchange like how you're doing, what has worked, what hasn't. Then after that, that's where I do a lot of my reading. It could be books, it could be annual reports of companies, etc. But one thing that doesn't change is the uninterrupted writing time in the morning. Yeah, so that timing is protected. Then how well I'm able to write is based on how much I read and how much I think, right? So that is also another 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon or at night that is set aside. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. Like to hear about that, like you actually allocate time to think and read, because that is like a cycle, right? Like once you read and you absorb content, then you generate ideas and different ideas for your research. Um, so I guess there's also another question here that my team wants to find out, which is about were there any problems that you encountered when you first started? Because you mentioned also like about the lack of feedback loop, right? Like how in school we have midterms and common tests and stuff, but um as an entrepreneur you might not have that kind of tight feedback loop. So how do you actually deal with this, and how do you actually deal with it and resolve it?
Yeah, I mean, so it is tough to deal with that because whenever you try to compare yourself with your peers, for example, the guy who started around the same time as me, he managed to grow his following to maybe 100,000 followers on Twitter. Then when I start envisioning my current state, against the guy who grew it to 100K, it's not a very helpful comparison per se. But what is more helpful is understanding what could have been done better. I mean, I would guess in school it's the same also. Like when you look at your friends do better than you, inevitably you will feel a bit shitty about yourself. But what is important is to focus on the process and find out what could be improved from there. And then that's where talking to people helps. Like especially if you look at people who are 2 steps ahead of you, they are the best. They're usually the best people to advise you, as opposed to people who are way advanced than you, right? Because they're already at a stage whereby they don't know what you're going through. So usually I will reach out to people who are 2 steps ahead of me, and then they will usually provide pretty solid advice, like stuff like they will ask me like what is my unique value proposition, then you have to answer that question, and then over time you just kind of work out what are the marketing things that you could be improving on, or the writing style, feedbacks. Yeah, so talking to people helps a lot. Yeah, and in the same sense, I would think like if you were to start business in other industry or other types of business, having a strong network of community always help, like people who are very growth oriented or abundance mindset. Yeah, so abundance mindset is important, right? Because those people want you to do better over time, and that's why they'll offer genuine feedback, like real feedback, not just to make you feel good, but like concrete advice on how you could do better. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I think as you said just now, like the market is very big and like the pie is big enough for everyone to have a piece of it lah. So it's not about um being competitive, but rather how you can learn from each other and how you can network. Yep. So there's also another question here with regards to, it's quite a specific one. So it's about pricing. So we actually taken a look at your website and we found that, as you mentioned, you charge $129 per year. So we were also wondering why not offer different plans instead of a flat out rate.
Yeah, that is a good consideration. Yeah, so usually when it comes to pricing, a lot of the marketing material out there will say like you need to anchor your customers. So like when you walk into a furniture store, right, you're not going to see the cheapest product on display. Or if you were to go to Tiffany and you look at the jewelries, right, the most expensive product will be out there. Like, so let's say you go into a furniture store, the first product is going to be $10,000. Then subsequently, when you see another product that's 5,000, you are going to, oh, this is an acceptable pricing because you have been anchored to the more expensive product, right? But I chose to market in, I don't find that um really dignified thing to do. I mean, I may be wrong, right? So what most people do is they will offer a monthly plan, and then they will offer an annual plan, and then they will offer a lifetime plan, right? And the purpose of the monthly plan and the lifetime plan is to anchor the customer. Which is to say, like, let's say take my example, for example, $129 per year, right? And then in most cases, they will offer like $30 per month. And then on the right side, they will offer like a lifetime subscription for $1,300, which is really to anchor audience, their customers, and make them think that the yearly plan is actually a damn good deal. I thought about that, but I prefer to keep things simple. Yeah, I mean, as a consumer myself, I hate it when I see those type of marketing plan. Or like when you look at when we just look at McDonald's, right? You buy a burger, but when you make it come with the meal, right, you just add dollar plus plus, which is just another marketing way of making you buy more shit. Yeah.
Quite a bigger one, yeah.
I mean, as a consumer, I don't like that. So when I'm doing the business, I try to abstain from that. But I mean, I'm not ruling like in the future I may try this. You know, if it really helps conversion a lot, right? Then I may be and then I may consider doing that. But for now, I mean, I'm still not planning to do that.
I see. Yeah, because we were also wondering whether it might be perhaps better if you were to have different pricing for like students and let's say working adults, because their
Right.
purchasing power will be different.
Yeah.
So maybe that can be a future consideration lah. Yeah.
The student one is a tricky one. I mean, companies like Facebook, not Facebook, sorry, YouTube subscription, Spotify, or Microsoft, Adobe, right? They can do the student things easily because they have software engineers behind them to verify, automated verification of student email, or like, for example, YouTube. If you subscribe YouTube Premium today, they'll ask you to log into your SMU account. But for me, I'm not able to get someone that's sophisticated to come and build that system for me, because that's not easy. You have to link with SMU API and the API of all the university around the entire world, right? And that is just a lot of work. Yeah, so I mean, the student thing is good, but I mean, unless I'm like a mega subscribing business whereby I got millions of audience, otherwise I think it's tough to maintain that kind of IT infrastructure.
The verification will be very troublesome also.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's also to wrap things up, right? There are a couple of questions left. So what would you consider your most valuable asset, the thing that enabled you to be successful in your business?
I think it is all the work that led up to this. I wouldn't even call it work actually, because right now what I'm doing is something I'm interested in, like investing. So I've started investing since like 15 years ago. Yeah, so it is accumulation of the knowledge up till now. And it is really what is driving most of my success. The next thing is really your reputation, right? Nothing beats a clean reputation. Yeah, I mean, when you have a good reputation, people just want to see you succeed. So when I first come out to do this, right, there's a lot of bloggers or platforms that push for me, right? All the opportunities that came from Seedly or Money FM, or these were all due to recommendations by other more established players in the field. Yeah, so having a good reputation really helps. Of course, there's the another side of another way you could do things, which is to have very strong character, which I don't. So I have to play to my strength. Right. When I say strong character, I'm talking of characters like let's say Xia Xue. I'm not sure whether your generation know of Xia Xue, or or Stephen Lim. Like they are not spending heavily on marketing, right? But you know them, right? Because they got personality, right? I don't have that very strong personality. Or you look at Chicken Genius, if you subscribe to his YouTube channel, right? He has a personality as well. Like he's very bullish on Tesla, right? All in Tesla. That kind of very extreme things which will draw criticism, like people will say like you xiao, then that's where you get a lot of free marketing. Otherwise, if you want to do it the other way, then it's to really have good reputation, a strong network, so that people will get you to go on their program, etc. And that's where your product will be known.
Yeah. very good learning points for all of us here. So I guess another question that we have is that um how do you deal with rejection and manage feelings or doubt, or like the opinions of naysayers, or because I guess when you are pursuing this entrepreneurship journey, perhaps there are people like perhaps your parents or people um might not have the confidence in you. So how do you manage with all these kind of opinions?
I mean, I guess for guys, it's easier to deal with rejection, right? Always,
Yeah.
like every time you want to try something, you get rejected. But for girls, maybe the skin a bit more thin. For guys, I mean, it's just, or for anyone, not for guys. For anyone, it's just a matter of, knowing what's the worst case scenario. If the worst case scenario is not that bad, I mean, in my case, if this doesn't work out in 2 years, right? What's the most that can happen? Oftentimes we'll imagine like your friends will laugh at you, or people will think like useless. You wanted to start something on your own. In the end, you have to go back to become employed. But all these are just voices inside our head, and most of the time, people are more busy being concerned with themselves and how they look rather than be concerned about how you look, right? And then when you really think about the worst case scenario, it's just 2 years of lost income, and in the grand scheme of things, 2 years in a 40-year working period, right? I mean, we have to work for 40 years, or 30 plus to 40 over years before we can retire. Then, I mean, it's just a very, very small risk. Getting denied, or getting rejected, not so much of an issue. I mean, I think the biggest cause of concern is regret, right? What if you don't do this? A lot of times we think about what will happen if we do it, but we don't really flip it around and think about what happens if we don't do it. And oftentimes the best time to do it is right now, right? The younger you are, the better it is to start any projects. I mean, if I could go back in time, I'll probably start it when I was in NUS. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But back then I had a scholarship. I thought like confirm have to work there 4 years anyway. Might as well just wait until my scholarship finished and start something. But yeah, I should. I mean, looking back, should have realized like the internet is a very, very easy way to get audience. And the number one thing for any business on the internet, right, is you must get an audience. You must get subscribers, followers, etc. Once you have audience, you can think about monetization afterwards.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of like insights that you shared. Like it's about really about putting things into perspective, like 2 years versus the grand scheme of things of like 40 over years. And if you don't try now, then you might regret in the future also. So any final thoughts or any advice that you want to give an aspiring entrepreneur, or like students who want to start their business in future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to learn, right, is to just start. As much as I attended business school for 4 years in NUS, to be honest, not sure whether it's the right thing to say, but never really learn any. I mean, you can learn all the theory that you want, right? But the things, the steepest learning curve comes when you're actually doing it. And when you're doing it, that's where your mind starts to take notice of the advertisement campaign. That's where I start to take notice of how Apple phrase their advertisement, their copywriting, etc. That's why you start to pick up a lot of stuff, right? In school, it's more about creating fancy PowerPoint slides, trying to charm the lecturer when you're presenting, memorizing the theory, then dumping it out in the exam. But when you're actually doing it, that's where you really pick up skills. And the feedback loop is fast on the internet, in that sense, like whether your marketing messages is working or not, because you can monitor the impressions or how many people are visiting your website based on Google Analytics. But in school, the person evaluating you, or otherwise your lecturer, I'm not sure whether your lecturer is going to listen to this, but they are going to have biases, right? Like let's say if your group have someone who speaks in a manner that's similar to your lecturer is bound to like that person a bit more, for example, right? But when you're doing it, running a business, right, it is going to be the market that's going to judge you, right? And that's where your real competency gets tested. And that's where you find out what works and what doesn't work, beyond what you learn in class, which is mainly what researchers or PhD students or master students put out the theory. And then, they'll make you study that theory etc. Not saying that those are not helpful, but the fastest way to learn is to just start doing it.
Nice. Okay, so I think just to sum up, you mentioned start early when you're young, when you're in uni, because there's like lower opportunity cost also. And then second thing is to use analytics and iterate and find out what the audience want as quickly as possible. And I think as you mentioned right at the top, building an audience is very important if you want to start an online business or anything like in general. You must have that kind of audience and also have a good reputation and also network with people in your industry.
Right.
So with that, I think we've
Tess, actually, I do have a few follow-up questions, if Thomas doesn't mind.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think firstly, you mentioned just now that the bulk of your audience is actually US, right?
Right.
But you mentioned that the bulk of your marketing and BD initiatives are in Singapore, right? Seedly, so on and so forth. So don't mind me asking, right? Are you investing in sorry, not investing, right? But are you like spending marketing capital to get a US audience or?
No, so like when I get US audience, right, most of them are coming through Twitter. So I mean, okay, so different platforms will be good for different products. So like if you are selling fashion, for example, then that your Instagram should be your main mode of growing your audience. But for finance related content, Twitter is the way to go. Yeah, so all my customers are organic growth, meaning I don't spend on advertisement dollar, right? Because I think the conversion rate for advertisement dollar is very low in this sense. I think the conversion rate would be better for products people already want, or like brands they're familiar with. Like, so let's say Nike can send out a very targeted advertisement for someone who likes to collect sneakers, right? Then they will just target the age group and people who belongs to those Facebook group. But for finance related stuff, I think conversion through advertisement is a very poor medium. I mean, if you all see like all those like Imran or Adam Khoo or something, usually you all will click skip ad, right? You all will not bother clicking. So what I focus on Twitter is like I provide value. So I'll do company breakdown on Twitter, or I'll reach out to podcasts, financial podcasts overseas, and then I'll do a episode with them over there. Yeah, so that's how I try and get the opportunity, or rather the customers from overseas. Yeah, I mean I engage in a lot of this like Money FM, etc. because it's easy because I'm a Singaporean based in Singapore, so naturally the network here is stronger. For overseas, that's where the power of Twitter comes in. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think earlier you mentioned that you focus on a few companies, right? Don't mind me asking, how do you choose this company? Is it our passion, or is it because you think that there's a demand for these in the market, or?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So it comes from a belief what generates the biggest amount of wealth for me as an investor. So over time as I'm investing, right, my investing style gradually changed from like deep value investing, which is to invest in companies that are trading below their net assets. I mean, their current, their net working capital to be specific, to investing in dividend companies, right? And then eventually I'm looking at high quality growth companies, meaning company who can grow for a very, very long time. Because these are the kind of companies that can make a real difference to your wealth as an investor, right? When we invest in like dividend company, for example, you look at Singapore is famous for dividends, like your REITs and all that. You're not going to make much more than 7-8% a year. But when you're looking at like 20 to 35% returns per year, then you have to look at these growth companies, usually abroad, because Singapore, our market is very, very small. And so I usually look at China and USA, and that is how I select my company based on my own investing style. And then those customers who are aligned with my investing style, then they will come and find me, because on the internet is huge, right? I'm sure if I write dividends, right, I'll have a lot more Singaporean subscribers, but that is not where my I think it's a waste of time to look at dividend companies, especially at my age group. So that's how I choose my company, really based on my own investing style.
Interesting. So I think you mentioned about investing style, and I think that's a big point, right?
Yeah.
Because don't mind me asking, do you have a niche target audience that you're targeting? Because right now it seems like you're just targeting any retail investor, right? So it can be, as long as the guy can be overseas or Singapore. But you mentioned that you're targeting a particular kind of investor. So do you mind sharing about that?
Yeah, I'm not specifically targeting retail investor because I mean, when I look at when I look at my paying subscribers, right, I think half of them are actually, they come from hedge funds or, investment managers of some sort, because their email, they sign off with the hedge fund email. Yeah, so the niche wise is really growth companies that are able to compound with their retained earnings for very, very long period. Yeah, so I mean, investing, there's a lot of style, right? There's people who use technical analysis, there's people who invest in deep value, there's people who invest specifically for dividends. But what I'm looking at is really companies who are able to grow for a very, very long period of time.
As in, what I mean is your subscriber audience. So right. It's mostly to B, is it? You mentioned the hedge funds and all are approaching you.
As in, because it's so like when I look at my current customers, right, half of them are retail investors and half of them are actually businesses, which is the investment industry folks.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think, and I think one last question, right, is what do you think is your next steps to scale at where you are now?
Yeah, so I mean, I have been thinking about running those investing courses, but I'm kind of lazy to do it. I mean, if I'm being very honest, I'm just a bit lazy lah. I mean, if there's actually like companies who have approached me to do all these investing courses, and these are able to scale, right? And it depends on what kind of investing courses you want to run. If you are running those like live courses, then you are not able to scale, right? Because you still have to attend and then you have to teach. But if I run those like Udemy style, meaning I just upload there and then people can go through the material, that is possible. But here's the thing, with internet and so many software out there, right, it's very, very easy to do it myself. Like I can just go on Teachable, upload all my videos there, and then people just start signing up. I mean, I just have to focus on the marketing. So that is one area I could focus on. Otherwise, in fact, just doing this subscription model and focus on growing my current subscriber base is actually a good enough thing to do. Yeah.
All right. I think that's all on my end. I think that's all on our team's end, in fact, right? I think there's anyone here else have any follow-up questions?
Not from me, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Then thanks so much for your time, Thomas. I think one last thing, if you don't mind, is it okay if our Zoom room takes a photo together? Because we are required to do it for submission purposes.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
can take the photo. Yeah, I can take a screenshot.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, done.
All right, perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Thomas.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time, Thomas.
Bye.
All right, thanks, Thomas. All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey, quick question. Isa and Dennis, were you all writing notes? Did the Word doc crash on you?
No.
No, but sometimes like a bit laggy, so I'm not sure if like Dennis is typing, but then I just need to refresh, then it was fine.
Can, good. Because mine got conflict, then it crashed. So but I stopped already. So I took everything on a personal notepad. No worries. I think when my Word doc refresh, I'll fill in whatever I don't have lah. I'll fill in whatever gap that I think you all might have missed. Tess, you can stop recording.
Let me stop recording first.